Look at that. Happily snowed in, almost literally. You know, it's along the window. You can even see the bands of striated accumulation here at the Syracuse studio. Winter in Syracuse is never a trifling matter. But I'm glad to be here today. Utica gets shut down if there's more than like 5 or 6 inches of snow. You just can't do anything. Syracusans are at least somewhat naturally adapted to it, although there's always those people who are just not prepared and not thinking. I've driven 4-wheel drive vehicles my whole life. I always wear boots anyway. A punk. Anyway, let's get to it. All sorts of goodies in many related, at least in terms of company. And here we have yet another Marx Apollo Astronaut camera guy. Not sure what my favorite pose of this group is. It might be one of the scoop dudes. So there's the stamp of approval. 1970 is the Roman numeral reading there. This one looks kind of funny, like a different kind of plastic than the other blue ones that I have. And of course, we'll do a little update on the series here. Had them as a kid, the complete 6-figure group. Did just awful things to them, I'm sure, and they were discarded before I was 10 or 12. So these have all been obtained within the past 8 months, 6 months, and we're still lacking blue examples of the flag guy and square scoop guy. There's always more figures to be found. And over here are 2 copies. That one cast in silver, hollow, like this one here from the Google Gang, which I opened up or showed the other week, and they're parachute. They're adapted for their copies that have been adapted for use as parachute jumpers, with rings added to their shoulders, and I guess you'd fill them with water, but they're a little bit light as just blow mold figures. So you fill it with water and then you throw it. But they're interesting. And sometimes copies can be even more scarce than originals, but these things are pretty iconic. I started to get out the 60 millimeter versions of them from the Playsets, and there's I want to say there were 12 poses for the Marx Apollo astronauts in all. So 6 of them were translated into the 6-inch figures, which were first released in 1970. All of them will have the Marx stamp on the bottom with the date 1970 in Roman numerals, as well, I think, as these. Let's try this one. The form is patented in 1970. With these, the 6-inch pieces first being released, I'm pretty sure they were available as a countertop bin where you'd go and you'd pick it up. You'd pick up the Spaceman, and they were 99 cents each or something like that. I don't think they were boxed up, and they were certainly never in a playset. The Apollo astronauts then appeared in white in the giant Martian Landing playset, which first surfaced in 1972, likely re-released again in 1977, and then in 1978, first with the Galaxy Command playset. They were pressed in this neon orange, and also appeared in Star Station 7. in these orange. Galaxy Command had them both in white and orange, and then Star Station 7 was orange only. So these are likely a mixture of all three sets: Giant Martian Landing, Galaxy Command, and Star Station 7 figures that have just been obtained in random lots. What are you paying for these? 5 to 20? As with all such things, these are worth exactly as much as the vendor can get for them, and not a penny more. Though I myself, $15 shipped for a good condition example, maybe $20 for the harder to find poses. $6 to $8 I think is fair. $12.50 is probably about as high as I'd go, and I got a good deal on him. He's got some minor discoloring, and it's definitely a funkier plastic. Here's the base of another one. There's just something funky about it, maybe a little bit more translucent or transparent. This one's fun, the scoop. This was the first blue one I got. Look at that, Kennedy Space Center, June 1971. Great grandchild, something like that. Can't read it. I'd give anything to have my originals back, and so had to recollect these as a grown up. They're almost the ultimate plastic space man from the Apollo era. And the way to tell that they're Marx is that they're in a pressurized EVA suit with a PLSS backpack. MPC has their figure in a skin-tight flight suit with diver tanks, essentially, which would not work in a vacuum. Nice idea, though, and it's more of a product of science fiction, where here we're seeing the result of the Apollo era popularization of space exploration and the demilitarization of our culture that was taking place as the society reacted with revulsion to the Vietnam War, and things like spacemen armed with weapons gave way to explorers or people up there for scientific reasons that were less violent. And let's hear it from Marx for coming up with really an iconic toy from that era. Sums it all up right there. Alright, what the heck, I know I'm going to have to do some editing there. On the left, 1962, 1963, MPC or Multiple Toy Makers 5.5-inch astronaut. The more I look at this guy, the more I like him too. I love the playware. I love knowing that he's old and that he was someone's toy. On the right, a Marx astronaut in somewhat unusual blue casting with the camera there, and I wanted to sort of make note of their differences and maybe help people learn how to spot which is which, or figure out which is which, or get it through their skulls which is which. The one on the left by MPC wears a skin-tight flight suit. Now, he would have come with equipment like an oxygen tank that you'd strap onto him, but he's not wearing a pressurized EVA suit like the Marx astronaut on the right, who's also, as part of his casting, there's his personal life support system backpack. And the MPC guy, you'd strap on a pair of air tanks like diver tanks. And the point being that he's not wearing a pressurized suit. You could not wear that in a vacuum. You'd wear it inside of a spaceship, maybe. I don't know what you'd have the diver tanks on for, but if you stepped out onto the moon like that, you wouldn't get very far before, I guess, your blood would boil or something like that, and you'd implode, like in what movie was it? Outland. But there on the right, he's ready for a vacuum. On the moon, he's got the right moon shoes on. And another interesting stylistic difference is that he's carrying, the Marx astronaut is carrying a camera. The MPC astronaut is carrying what looks like a space revolver, quite actually. And it's a difference in style and approach between 1963 and 1970, which is the date that's going to be stamped on the base of your Marx astronaut figures. I'm not going to bother trying to put it in focus. We saw it in the other one. MPC figure has no stamping on it. He will have a number on his boot, I think, that corresponds with the cavity position in the mold, if I understand the lingo correctly. His vision is more of a Cold War era idea of how we were going to be in space competitively, where the Apollo astronaut is there to explore. He's there to do peaceful things. He's not there to mix it up. He knows there's going to be nobody he's going to have to defend himself against, at least unless the landing goes astray and he comes down on land. Then I think they would have had pistols in their survival packs, but they're not strapping a gun on to walk around on the moon because there's nobody there. There's still nobody there. But I just wanted to sort of help people recognize the difference between the two. I say it because you always see the MPC figures listed as Marx Spacemen. No. And I woke up on the wrong side of the bed one day and corrected a couple of people on the mistakes where they're calling everything Marx, and I won't do it anymore because I could sit there and do it for days and not get them all. It's not even a misconception. People are deliberately spamming it. Anything that's a plain plastic space form, people will tag it as Marx just to get you to look at it and think about spending your money on it, which is a shame because it creates confusion within beginning collectors. For a while, I was convinced it was they were both by Marx and that Marx did everything. And no, they didn't. They didn't have time. They were too busy making cowboys and army men sets and Big Wheel and the robot boxers, whatever you want to call them. By 1972, they still had other playsets coming out after that, but the glory years of Marx space toy production was during Tom Corbett, Space Patrol, Rex Mars, and then the Cape Canaveral and Operation Moonbase sets. I want that Space Ranger set. Anyway, wanted to point that out. Figure on the left, MPC or multiple toy makers. Figure on the right, Marx. Get it right.